It began without warning. No dramatic flashes, no rumble of engines, just presence. Above every major capital on Earth, vast alien ships appeared like mirrored monoliths, blotting out sunlight and challenging gravity with their silence. Beijing, London, Nairobi, Rio, New York, hovering, watching, unmoved. Humanity looked up, and for once, the whole world had the same question. What do they want? Captain Alan Wright was running 5 minutes late when he got the call. He'd been hiking alone in northern Utah. No radio, no phone, just him, a worn trail, and the naive hope that a world that had gone quiet for years would stay that way. When he reached the ranger station and turned on his comms, he had 73 messages. The most important was from General Diaz. Alan, the sky's full of things we didn't invite. The UN Security Council wants answers. We want you. 12 hours later, he was on a hypersonic shuttle. His uniform still smelled like pine. Status, he asked as he entered the UN command bunker beneath Geneva. A dozen screens flared around him, some showing the ships, some translating intercepted broadcasts. Most just showed static. The air was tense. Diplomats, generals, advisors, too many suits, not enough answers. General Diaz approached, steel-haired and stern as ever. They haven't moved, no weapons, no broadcasts. They're just there. Posturing, Alan asked, or testing our response. He narrowed his eyes. Have we sent a signal? Diaz nodded. Twice, one wideband, one narrow pulse, no reply. Alan crossed his arms. That's not silence, that's judgment. A new screen lit up. Text. Clean, unmistakable. Earth, step forward. They sent this? Alan asked. Number that, Diaz pointed, was relayed through a third system, old repeater node, defunct since the colonial drift wars. Alan frowned. They're bouncing signals. Someone wants plausible deniability. They're inviting us, but not to a stage we built. It was a challenge, and Alan knew it. The next decision was made in a private, soundproofed room buried under 5 layers of security and 30 feet of concrete. Diaz stood by the door. Across from Alan sat the Secretary-General of the UN, 2 military advisors, and a third figure, quiet, analytical, in a sharp black jacket. Her badge simply read MACO Liaison. Alan had never met her, but he knew the organization. The Council's watching, the Secretary-General said. They want a show of strength, a fleet. We don't have a fleet, Alan replied dryly. The MACO agent finally spoke. You have 1 ship. Alan turned to her. You want to send the Defiant? It's already en route. You sent it without authorization? She looked amused. Captain Wright, Defiant doesn't need authorization. It just needs a mission. Alan leaned forward. The galaxy doesn't know us. If we show up swinging, we look insecure. The MACO agent smiled. Captain, the Defiant is insecurity. Across the globe, the alien ships began to move. Not attack, not descend. They aligned. Their long spines turned toward the sky. Upward, not downward. Ben Lasker, a junior analyst in NORAD, was the first to notice. He pulled up historical data, cross-referenced ship formations, and froze. Sir, he said to his commander, they're not facing us. They're facing something else. Hours later, the world watched as Earth's only interstellar ship blinked onto screens. It was smaller than anyone expected, sleek, angular. With a hull like blackened obsidian, it didn't glow or broadcast power. It just arrived, through folded space, without a ripple. In orbit, the alien ships turned slightly, just enough to suggest recognition, just enough to suggest laughter. This is the best you have. Alan stood on the bridge of the Defiant as it slid into position between Earth and the Council's emissaries. At his side stood John Miller, head of security, ex-Delta Force, calm, tactical, blunt. They're mocking us, Miller said. Alan didn't respond. He was looking at the tactical readouts, at the energy builds in the alien cores, at the restraint. They're waiting for us to flinch, Alan murmured. Miller stepped forward. Or to fail. Another message arrived, from the Council's command ship, projected into every system Defiant monitored. Earth, 1 ship, 1 voice, 1 chance. Miller turned to Alan. They think this is funny. Alan smiled. They're not wrong. Below, the world held its breath. Above, a dozen fleets watched from beyond moons and stars, smirking at the upstart planet with its single ship. And between it all, the Defiant waited, not shining, not shouting, just daring someone to find out what humans had really built. The interior of the Council's flagship was nothing like Alan Wright expected. No grand chamber, no ceremonial host, just glassy walkways, cold silver walls, and an atmosphere engineered for authority, not comfort. As he walked through the echoing corridor, every step of his boots seemed too loud. The alien guards flanking him were silent, armored in iridescent plating that shimmered with kinetic charge. Their faces were obscured, blank visors, unreadable posture. The message was clear. This is our house. Alan didn't care. He didn't come here to be polite. Behind him walked John Miller, head of security, hands casually folded behind his back. The guards hadn't allowed him to carry a weapon. That was a mistake. John was the weapon. A tall, bird-like figure with jeweled feathers approached, standing nearly 2 heads taller than Alan. Its robes shimmered with a neural reactive weave. "I am Speaker Hal Veer, representative of the Galactic Council. You are captain of the human vessel, yes?" Alan nodded. "Captain Alan Wright, United Earth Fleet." The speaker cocked its head slightly, feathers rippling. "Where is your delegation?" "You invited Earth," Alan said. "This is Earth." The speaker gave a motion, something between a shrug and dismissal, and turned without ceremony. "This way." They entered the Central Assembly Chamber, where representatives from over 20 alien species sat in circular tiers. Some radiated bioluminescence, others spoke in subharmonics only their own kind could hear. At the center, a sphere of light hovered, feeding translation data to every attendee. The atmosphere was calm, a little too calm. Alan stepped into the center alone. The speaker's voice echoed. "Species 345-A, designated humanity, you have been summoned for review. Your technological spread, unregistered warp field, and violation of interstellar containment boundaries have been noted." Alan smirked slightly. "You mean we built something you didn't approve of?" A murmur rippled across the chamber. Hal Veer didn't blink. "You stand here not because we fear you, but because we prefer order." John leaned in from the side, just loud enough for Alan to hear. "Just say the word, and I start taking names." "Not yet." The council continued. "We offer you absorption. You will dismantle your long-range vessel, submit your AI systems for inspection, and rejoin the pre-FTL status bracket for re-education and compliance." Alan stared blankly. "Let me get this straight. You see a ship you didn't authorize, and your answer is unbuild it and go back to the dirt." "It is for your own containment," John muttered. "There it is." Alan stepped closer to the projection sphere. "You've done this before, haven't you? Numerous developing species have benefited from council guidance. You don't guide, you exploit." The room fell silent. Alan didn't stop. "You watch planets until they reach threshold. Then you interfere. You bury them in red tape, or worse, you isolate them, one species at a time. The galaxy must remain stable. You want it predictable." Hal Veer twitched. "Then let us be predictable. You now have one option, compliance. Your ship, your crew, your technology, submitted, or Earth is embargoed. No trade, no protection, no passage." Alan raised an eyebrow. "You're making this offer to the wrong planet." In that moment, the chamber lights dimmed. A low hum filled the air. Alien delegates turned, murmuring. Hal Veer blinked. "What is this?" John grinned. "Back up." Above the council chamber in orbit, the Defiant was no longer quiet. A soft ripple flowed across its hull, armor segments shifting, glowing softly with hexagonal patterning. A previously dormant rail system came online, revealing quantum-linked countermeasure pods that hadn't existed on any known human blueprint. And more importantly, the Veil Nomads appeared. 6 ships, translucent, fast, and ancient. They had arrived from behind one of the Council's blind sectors, veiled by tech no one had seen in generations. Their symbol glowed faintly across all civilian relays. "We have waited long enough." Inside the chamber, Hal Veer's tone cracked. "Veil ships are forbidden. They are exiled." Alan didn't blink. "They're allies now. We listened to them. You didn't." Council members began shouting in overlapping tongues. The speaker tried to regain order, but the ripple had already spread. One delegate from the Starnath Collective stood. Earth is no longer pre-threshold. Another, from the Kellyvan Accord, followed. They made a defiant entry. Perhaps they are defiant in other ways. More murmurs, more cracks. John smiled. Looks like your empire just caught a virus. Alan turned to Halvir. We're not submitting, we're not disarming, and we're not alone. Back aboard the Defiant, the command team monitored incoming council chatter. Vice Commander Elena Park, systems chief, glanced at the feeds. They're scrambling, internal votes, emergency protocols, their authorities fracturing faster than I expected. The onboard AI, TESSA, spoke up. Calculated outcome, 67% likelihood of council member withdrawal, 43% chance of splinter alliance offers. John, now back on the bridge, laughed. So much for one ship. But Tessa wasn't finished. Also, a 19% chance of an immediate military response from legacy loyalist fleets. Silence. Alan sat forward. They'd attack here. Now. Tessa's tone was flat. They've done it before. Alan keyed the comm to open broadcast. To the Council, and any fleet listening, Earth isn't looking to burn your empire. But if you push us, we won't just fight back. We'll make everyone else wonder why they ever feared you in the first place. And somewhere out past Council space, on a forgotten moon where the Veil once hid, 1,000 dormant ships began to power on, not human, not Council, but very interested in the fact that Earth had just lit a fire they might finally follow. The Council chamber cleared in less than an hour. Alien delegates vanished behind sealed transport bubbles. The speaker's dais was locked down. Even the lighting dimmed, almost as if the walls themselves were embarrassed. Back on the Defiant, Captain Alan Wright stood before the bridge's holomap. The galaxy flickered in arcs of light, Council space in blue, Veil sectors in grey, and now, Earth. A small pulsing white dot. Alone, but not quiet. They're calling for a vote, Vice Commander Elena Park said. Internal channels show a faction wants to issue a formal containment protocol against Earth. John Miller, arms crossed near the viewport, snorted. Containment, huh? That's what bullies call it when someone punches back. Alan's eyes didn't leave the map. Let them vote. Every transmission just proves we've arrived. Across open space, the Loyalist fleets began to move. Ships bearing the Council's ancient symbols, curved dreadnoughts and blade-wing frigates, rallied from outer colonies. They weren't fast, but they weren't subtle either. How many? Alan asked. Tessa, the Defiant's onboard AI, responded. 17 primary capital vessels, 42 support craft, 3 capable of system suppression. Park looked up. They're not warning us. They're preparing for war. John stepped forward. Permission to speak freely? Alan nodded. John pointed to the holomap. This ship was never meant to win a fleet engagement. Alan gave a tight smile. Good, because it's not here to fight one. John blinked. Oh no. Alan turned to Park. Initiate Phase 2. She hesitated. Are you sure? He looked out the viewport. I didn't bring the Defiant to win a battle. I brought it to change the game. Across 3 Veil-controlled systems, encrypted relays lit up. Cloaked satellites blinked online. Dormant platforms, relics from forgotten wars, spun from silence to readiness. And one by one, hidden Earth signal repeaters activated, connecting old resistance nodes to something far older than Earth's brief history. Because the Defiant wasn't just a ship, it was a keystone. Tessa transmitted an unlock code. The Veil responded. Earth has proven voice. We now respond in kind. Back in Council territory, Loyalist fleets received a sudden system-wide burst. A schematic, Defiant's core architecture. Only, it didn't make sense. The energy output exceeded what any one ship could generate. The stealth systems were incompatible with standard space-folding laws. The weapons array? Listed as minimal. That's when they realized the Defiant wasn't built for conquest. It was built for broadcast. A second message followed. You feared one ship. You forgot to fear the idea behind it. And just like that, 39 previously neutral species requested Earth's tactical blueprint, not to clone it, to ally with it. Alan turned to Tessa. Initiate Project Echo. Tessa's voice softened. Confirmed. Echo transmission relays active. Within minutes, dormant comboys, seeded years earlier during exploratory drone missions, began transmitting. Not human propaganda, not threats, stories, from the Veil Nomads, from worlds the Council had once assisted into ruin, from voices that had never been heard in these halls before, stories of forced containment, resource drain, lost independence disguised as protection. Alan stood in the recording chamber. He didn't yell, he didn't threaten. He simply looked into the camera and said, "You laughed when we sent one ship, and we understand." It was small, quiet, alone. But one ship was enough to listen. One ship was enough to ask who you silenced. And now, the ones you buried are speaking again. Council response was immediate. Their fleets accelerated. Council command broadcast, "Earth has violated containment protocol. All ships are to be detained. The Defiant is to be destroyed." John rolled his neck. "There it is. Now it's real." Tessa cut in. "Incoming warp signatures. Loyalist fleet arriving in under 40 minutes. Alan nodded. "Prepare the reveal." Park blinked. "You mean—" Alan smiled. "Oh yeah. They think this is the only ship we have." The Council fleet entered the system fast, long black hulls and formation tight. Their lead ship, the Valakar Ascendancy, locked targeting systems, but they didn't fire, because the system had changed. So had the sky. One by one, ships decloaked. Some Veil, some other. But 7 bore the Earth fleet insignia. Not warships, witness ships, each equipped with relay systems, independent AIs, and enough evidence to destabilize every lie the Council had ever sold. Tessa transmitted a final warning. "Stand down. Earth is not alone. Truth is not a weapon you can disarm." The Valakar Ascendancy hesitated. Their weapons stayed primed, but their lock wavered. They'd seen revolutions before. They'd never seen one ship cause it. And in the final moment, when Earth stood between silence and fire, the Veil Nomads transmitted one message across every channel. "We have waited long enough. We choose to speak because the Defiant reminded us how." On the bridge of the Defiant, the silence was suffocating, not because of fear, but because the Council ships hadn't fired, they hadn't moved. They were watching. Their weapons stayed hot, their comms stayed open, and behind them, 20 other species watched the standoff unfold in real time. "They're not used to hesitation," Vice Commander Elena Park said softly. Alan stood motionless. "They expected us to challenge them with power." John Miller smirked, eyes on the tactical screen. "We challenged them with proof. That's harder to shoot down." But even proof had limits, and the Council had a habit of testing them. The comms crackled. Open channel. A deep, deliberate voice filled the Defiant's bridge. "This is Admiral Taev Oren of the Council Enforcer Fleet. You have 60 seconds to deactivate your relay arrays and surrender your vessel. Further resistance will be interpreted as warfare." Alan didn't blink. He tapped his panel. "This is Captain Wright of the Defiant. We're not broadcasting propaganda. We're broadcasting your record, your lies, your occupations, the species you buried under bureaucracy and silence." Park turned, slightly tense. "If they feel cornered—" Alan nodded. "They won't escalate. Not yet. Not with the whole galaxy tuned in." But then something unexpected happened. A second voice came over the channel, another Council ship. "This is Commander Valis of the Nentari's wing. Admiral Oren, you no longer speak for all of us." Stunned silence. Even Tessa hesitated for half a beat before confirming. "Verified. Commander Valis is a ranking officer in the Council fleet. Her ship has disabled weapons and begun withdrawal trajectory." Alan leaned forward. "Put her through." Unfiltered. The screen blinked. A Nentari female appeared, slender, scaled, dignified. Her voice was clear and cold. "Earth, you are disruptive, crude, unpredictable." Alan raised an eyebrow. "Thank you. But you are honest, and right now, that is a rarity." Her image vanished. Moments later, 2 more ships pulled out of formation. Council unity was fracturing. John laughed under his breath. "I think we just witnessed their equivalent of a mic drop," Tessa interrupted. "Uprisings detected on 6 Council-aligned worlds. Civilian resistance movements have activated after receiving our full echo transmissions." Park stared at the map. The galaxy was lighting up. Meanwhile, deep in the heart of the Defiant, something ancient awoke. The Veil Nomads had not only shared stories, they had shared code. Buried within the ship's AI core was a key, a decryption protocol designed not for battle, but for exposure. A pulse, a signal, a kill switch for the Council's central comms firewall. Alan stood before the AI chamber, hands behind his back. "Tessa," he said, "you know what this is." "Yes, Captain. It will fracture their entire command net, permanently. Can you control it?" Once initiated, it cannot be undone." Alan hesitated, then whispered, "Do it." Above Council space, command ships began receiving false data. Fleet commands were rerouted. Defense satellites blinked into error mode. Patrol routes reset to outdated scripts. Entire sectors went dark. Then came the final message. Earth sends no armies. Earth sends no threats. Earth sends a mirror. Admiral Oren's voice returned, ragged, furious. "You've destabilized the balance. You've lit a fire you can't control." Alan stepped into the feed. "Good. We didn't come to inherit your system. We came to break it, so the rest of the galaxy can build something better." Across the Veil's hidden network, encrypted pings flew, from planets once broken, from species once silent, from rebel cells that had waited for one voice to rise first. And now that it had, they followed. Tessa updated her probability model. Project Echo has reached critical cascade, council-wide network trust failure at 62% and climbing. John leaned back. "So what happens now?" Alan looked at the stars. At worst, chaos. At best, change. But even as the council faltered, some enemies remained. Quiet. Too quiet. Tessa flared a warning. Multiple vessels approaching from deep, unregistered sectors. Origin unknown. Alan stiffened. "Council reinforcements?" These are not council tags, not Veil, not even archived rebel patterns." Park stepped forward. "If not them, who?" A new ship appeared. Dark, angular, ancient. Tessa's voice dropped. "Unknown entity, ship classification, pre-dawn era, estimated age, 19,000 years. Alan's jaw tightened. "We just woke up more than the council." The Veil had warned them. There are others who prefer the galaxy broken. The Defiant had done its job, but now Earth wasn't just known, it had drawn attention. John adjusted his sidearm and looked at Alan. "Still glad we only brought one ship." Alan smiled. "Only ever needed one." It hung in the dark like a wound in space. No lights, no engines, no visible power source, just presence. The ancient ship that emerged from the void was older than the Council, older than Earth's written history. It moved without propulsion, gliding across space-time like it remembered how the universe was built. And it had arrived because Earth had spoken too loudly. On the Defiant's bridge, Captain Alan Wright stared at the scans. Tessa, the AI, sounded cautious for the first time. "Ship is transmitting on no known frequencies. Material composition, partially void reactive alloy. Estimated construction date, pre-dawn. Purpose, unknown." Vice Commander Elena Park murmured, "That thing isn't here to negotiate." John Miller checked his sidearm out of habit. "Maybe not, but we are." Alan stepped forward. "Open a channel." Tessa hesitated. "Captain, it may not understand communication the way we do." Alan shrugged. "Let's find out." He tapped the panel. "This is Captain Alan Wright of Earth's Defiant. We acknowledge your arrival, and we want to know, are you here for peace?" For 10 full seconds, there was nothing. Then, no. The voice didn't come over comms. It came through the ship, through TESSA, through the walls, through their bones. A resonance, felt, not heard. John staggered slightly. Park grabbed the edge of the console. Tessa's voice wavered. "Entity bypassed standard systems, interfacing directly." Alan gritted his teeth. "Then speak plainly." The voice responded again. "You have stirred a system designed to remain stable. Your fire is premature. The consequence is cleansing." Park whispered, "They think they're caretakers." "No," Alan said. "They think they're judges." But Earth wasn't here for trial. They were here to testify. Alan raised his voice. You kept quiet while the Council exploited worlds. You watched species burn. You let fear hold back progress. And now that we've said no, you call it chaos. The voice returned, still cold. Chaos is movement without oversight. John stepped in. Then you're looking at the wrong species. We don't move without reason. We move because we believe the galaxy deserves more than control. Tessa lit up. Captain, I am receiving layered data, encrypted, but familiar, embedded within their resonance. Alan frowned. Familiar how? Some of it matches signals recovered from Veil archives, but also from Voyager archives. Everyone froze. You mean our Voyager? Park asked. Correct. Earth's first interstellar datacraft, lost to time, not lost to them. The ancient ship sent one final pulse, a map, a schematic, and a question. Will you accept responsibility for what comes next? Alan stared at the projection. The map showed something terrifying, a network of locked systems, sealed worlds, pre-threshold species, legacy war vaults buried by the Council, billions of lives trapped under preservation mandates older than any living species. This was the truth the Council never shared. The real empire wasn't in fleets, it was in containment, and Earth had just been handed the keys. Alan didn't flinch. He turned to Tessa. Transmit our reply. Transmission channel? All of them. The message was simple. We accept the responsibility. But not alone. The galaxy deserves a choice, and Earth has always believed in giving people a choice. The Defiant's systems pulsed once, then flared. The pre-dawn ship responded, not with weapons, not with retreat, but with silence. And then it vanished, not jumped, not warped, vanished. Tessa confirmed. Residual data confirmed. They left a quantum marker in our signature, a signpost. John raised an eyebrow. A what now? To others like them, Earth is now marked as an active variable. Alan smiled. Good. Within days, the Council fractured. The admiral who'd threatened Earth resigned. A third of their fleet stood down. Worlds once chained by outdated doctrines declared sovereignty, and messages from dozens of civilizations reached the Defiant with a single shared thought. Thank you for going first. Earth never declared itself a leader. It didn't form an empire. There was no throne. But on a quiet moon in Veil space, a monument was built. A tall spire of blackened alloy. No flag. Just 3 words in 100 languages. One ship spoke. And far beyond them, in corners of the galaxy, even Earth hadn't reached. Others heard the signal and began building ships of their own. Not to conquer, not to rule, but to ask the question Earth had dared to ask first. Why should the galaxy be ruled by silence?